A few years ago, my wife Amy and I made the move to Compass North Church. We were looking for a life-giving church. We took a huge leap of faith. We moved about an hour away. We moved in with some friends for a time to make this thing work. And during that time of transition, during that time of even a little bit of turmoil, God just brought some songs to my heart and my mind. And one of those songs was One Voice. And at the time in our services, we had been talking about what would it look like if the church became one? What would it look like if the global church, the local church, different denominations all became one unit with one voice striving for the same thing? And I feel like God kind of tapped a new well in my heart and brought about a new spirit in my life and kind of downloaded these songs and said, hey, this is what I'm doing through you, and so why don't you share that with the people of the church? And that's exactly what the album is all about. Just sharing God's journey in our own lives and just knowing that that's going to relate to people and knowing that's going to help people and knowing that's going to unify us all. So we kicked off 2016 with a vision weekend where we were just casting vision for 2016, talking about some big goals, some big ideas, and some big dreams that God had placed on our hearts. And one of those was to come out with a worship album. That was a big undertaking, a big task, and so we hit the ground running. We gathered some songs together. We found a studio down in Canton called Real Gray Records. And a good friend of mine, Ron Flack, said, hey, I'd love for you guys to come down here and record the worship album. And the cool thing about this studio was I had actually got a chance to help build the studio. So we began fundraising for this project back in February 2016. And we were overwhelmed with the response that we got from our church and our friends and our families. It was awesome to see people really rally around this vision that was set and say, you know what, we want our church to have a voice. We want the global church to have a voice. We know that these songs that are going to be sung will glorify Jesus. And ultimately, that's why people gave and that's why people supported us. And it was really encouraging to see the amount of support that we had from everybody in our church. Initially, when we started recording One Voice, I kept telling our team and our church that I wanted people to feel loved when they listen to these songs. And I don't think anything could be truer now than it was at the start, that I want people to feel loved when they hear these words, when they hear this music. And I want it to draw them into God's presence. I want the songs to be even maybe prayerful songs for people in their journey with God. So during this whole recording process, it was really cool to see these songs taken to a whole nother level by our musicians, to a whole nother level by our singers. And they just really owned it and embraced it and said, hey, look, these are our songs that God has given us, and we want to steward them well. We want to give everything we have to it. And there was a few hiccups along the way. I remember we had probably put 8 hours into one of the songs, and it just didn't work. The key was wrong, the timing was wrong. When we got the singer in the studio, it just didn't work. And so I started to freak out a little bit, but I was like, you know what? This is gonna work out. People around me were saying the same thing. Hey, don't freak out. This is gonna work out. And it did, man. You know, God always does come through. We know that. It's hard to believe sometimes. Our prayer is that this album would inspire churches, that it would inspire individuals to really claim one voice for the cause of Christ. We want to see this music spread. We want to see this music infiltrate dark places. We want to see people receive hope, to hear that they are loved, and to ultimately glorify the one and only God and bring praise to Jesus Christ.